five-star hotel lobby glows with golden chandeliers. Wealthy businessmen arrive for a dinner meeting. The head of the group is a powerful Chinese billionaire, Mr. Li. He is arrogant, proud of his wealth and language. Mr. Li enters the luxury restaurant with bodyguards. Waiters rush to prepare the VIP table. Among them is David, a young black waiter. David is polite, quiet, and hardworking. He carefully balances a tray of sparkling glasses. Guests whisper about the billionaire's reputation. Mr. Li is known for mocking those he sees as inferior. He scans the room with a smirk. His guests laugh loudly at his jokes. David approaches with menus. Mr. Li squints at David. He begins to laugh mockingly. He makes a joke in Mandarin about David. His words insult David's race and job. The billionaire's friends laugh with him. Other guests glance uncomfortably. David lowers his eyes, but stays calm. Mr. Li continues mocking, confident David can't understand. He says, "This waiter doesn't even know what I'm saying." His friends roar with laughter. The room grows tense. David sets down the tray gently. He looks up slowly, locking eyes with Mr. Li. His expression shifts from humble to firm. In perfect Mandarin, David replies. His words echo clearly across the table. "Sir, respect is more valuable than money." The entire restaurant gasps. Mr. Li freezes, shocked. His friends' laughter dies instantly. Guests whisper in disbelief. Did he just speak Chinese? David continues calmly in fluent Mandarin. He tells Mr. Li that mocking others reveals weakness. His pronunciation is flawless. His tone is sharp yet respectful. Mr. Li's face reddens. The billionaire is speechless. Silence fills the room. Then, soft applause begins. Customers clap, admiring David's courage. A fellow waiter smiles proudly. Mr. Li looks around, embarrassed. His friends avoid eye contact. David bows slightly, returning to work. The atmosphere changes completely. Mr. Li calls David back. His voice shakes slightly. "Where did you learn Chinese?" he asks. David replies, still in Mandarin. He explains that he studied in Beijing. He once worked as a translator, but he chose this job to support his family. The guests are amazed. Mr. Li lowers his arrogant tone. He realizes he underestimated David. Respect slowly replaces mockery. He tells David, "You are impressive." The room relaxes again. Guests nod in agreement. The applause grows louder. David returns to his duties with quiet dignity. Later, the billionaire requests David as his server. He no longer mocks him. Instead, he treats him politely. The story spreads through the hotel. Other staff admire David's courage. Customers talk about it for days. David's manager praises him. "You showed true strength," he says. That night, David walks home proud. A woman at a nearby table whispers, "That was incredible." A businessman murmurs, "I've never seen Mr. Li so quiet." David calmly pours water into a glass, unfazed. Mr. Li keeps staring, trying to regain control of the moment. He forces a laugh, but sounds hollow. His guests glance at him nervously. They are unsure whether to laugh or stay quiet. David politely asks, "Would you like to order now, sir?" His Mandarin is smooth, polite, professional. Mr. Li clears his throat and nods. For the first time, he does not look down on the waiter. The guests lean forward, curious. David listens attentively as they place orders. He repeats the orders back in Mandarin flawlessly. The guests exchange impressed looks. His accent is Beijing standard, one whispers. Mr. Li hides his embarrassment with a sip of wine. He mutters to himself, "Impossible how?" David notices, but remains professional. Another guest asks David, "Did you study in China?" David nods and answers in Mandarin. He explains he attended university in Beijing. He studied international relations and language. He worked briefly as a cultural translator, but when his mother fell sick, he returned home. He took a humble job as a waiter to support her. The guests grow silent, touched by his story. Mr. Li frowns, realizing his mockery was cruel. "You sacrificed your career for your family?" he asks. David replies, "Yes. Family is more important than pride." The room falls even quieter. The billionaire's friends look ashamed. Mr. Li sets down his glass, thinking deeply. He says softly, I respect that. For the first time, sincerity fills his voice. Food arrives at the table. David serves each dish with grace. Mr. Lee thanks him in Mandarin. David bows slightly in return. Guests notice the shift in tone. Some even smile, relieved. The tension has melted into quiet admiration. Another guest claps his hands. You've gained a new level of respect tonight, young man. David blushes but stays humble. He replies, respect should be mutual, sir. The guest nods firmly. Someone at another table films discreetly. The video captures the moment David spoke Mandarin. Later, it will spread on social media. For now, the restaurant buzzes with whispers. Who is that waiter? How many languages does he speak? David carries on, calm as ever. Mr. Lee cannot stop watching him. He thinks back to his own childhood. He remembers being poor before becoming wealthy. He recalls being mocked for his accent in English. The memory stings. He realizes he just did the same thing to David. Shame weighs heavy on him. He decides he must make things right. Mr. Lee excuses himself from the table. He walks to the corner of the restaurant. He calls his assistant quietly. Find me everything about this waiter, he says. The assistant nods and leaves quickly. Mr. Lee returns to his seat, pensive. Dinner continues, but he is distracted. His mind keeps replaying David's words. Respect is more valuable than money. Those words cut deeper than he expected. For the first time in years, he feels humbled. He begins to see David not as a waiter, but as an equal. The assistant quietly returns with a file. He whispers something into Mr. Lee's ear. Mr. Lee's eyes widen in surprise. The file reveals David once gave lectures in Beijing. He was praised by professors for his language skills. He even published a small paper in Mandarin. Mr. Lee feels even more ashamed of his earlier insult. He looks at David, who is calmly serving dishes. David doesn't show pride, only humility. Mr. Lee clenches his fist under the table. He whispers to himself, I was wrong. Guests notice his silence. One guest dares to joke, Lee, you finally met your match. Mr. Lee forces a smile, but deep down he agrees. He wonders how many other people he has mocked. He replays all his past arrogance. For once, guilt eats away at him. David approaches again with wine. Mr. Lee looks up and says, thank you in Chinese. David nods politely, as if nothing unusual happened. Guests exchange amazed glances. The billionaire said, thank you, one whispers. Slowly, admiration for David grows stronger. A small group of diners begin clapping again. David shakes his head humbly, signaling for calm. He doesn't want to embarrass the billionaire further. That gesture makes the crowd respect him even more. Mr. Lee notices David's restraint. He thinks, this man has more dignity than I do. He sighs heavily, realizing he has much to learn. Dinner ends, and the billionaire remains seated. Other guests stand and prepare to leave. Mr. Lee motions for David to stay a moment. David looks surprised but nods. The dining room empties, leaving only a few. Mr. Lee leans forward, speaking softly. David, may I ask you something? David nods, waiting respectfully. Why are you working as a waiter, when you could be more? David smiles faintly. Because sometimes life requires sacrifice, sir. He explains again about his mother's illness. He explains the financial burden. He says, I don't mind hard work. Dignity isn't tied to titles. Mr. Lee stares at him in silence. For the first time, he sees true strength in humility. You're a rare man, Mr. Lee admits. David bows his head slightly. Then Mr. Lee surprises him. I'd like to offer you a position in my company. David blinks in shock. Sir, with your language skills, I could use someone like you. Mr. Lee's voice is firm, but respectful now. Guests who overhear gasp quietly. David pauses, considering his words. He says, I'm honored, but I need time to think. Mr. Lee nods with understanding. Of course. Take your time. For once, the billionaire doesn't pressure anyone. Meanwhile, the secretly recorded video spreads online. The clip shows David replying in perfect Mandarin. Viewers are stunned across social media. Waiter humbles billionaire, the captions read. The video goes viral within hours. People praise David's courage. They admire his calm confidence. Respect is more valuable than money, trends worldwide. Comments flood in. This waiter deserves a promotion. Finally, someone taught that arrogant billionaire lesson. News outlets pick up the story. Headlines read, "Billionaire mocked waiter, got humbled." The hotel receives calls about David. Strangers send letters of encouragement. David remains humble, continuing his work. He avoids the spotlight as much as possible. But inside, he feels proud of standing up with dignity. Mr. Lee reads the headlines too. He shakes his head, realizing his arrogance has been exposed. He thinks about how quickly the world can turn. For the first time, he values humility over pride. He resolves to change his ways. He calls his PR team and says, "Do not spin this story. I was wrong." His team is shocked. "Sir, are you sure?" they ask. He replies, "Yes. Let the world know. I learned a lesson." His confession earns him unexpected respect. People comment, "At least he admitted his mistake." Both David and Mr. Lee's reputations grow. One for dignity, one for humility. Days pass after the viral incident. The hotel staff treat David like a hero. Customers request him as their server. Tourists ask to take pictures with him. David politely declines photos, wanting privacy. He continues to serve tables with humility. His manager notices his professionalism. "You're an example for everyone here," the manager says. David thanks him quietly. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee keeps thinking about David. He replays the moment David spoke Mandarin. Those words echo in his mind at night. Respect is more valuable than money. For the first time, he questions his lifestyle. He remembers the many workers he insulted in the past. He regrets his arrogance at board meetings. He begins apologizing to his own employees. At first, they are shocked. Then, slowly, they feel inspired. Mr. Lee's leadership style begins to change. His company notices morale improving. Productivity rises unexpectedly. Investors are surprised by the positive shift. They call it the new Lee philosophy, all because of one waiter's courage. Back at home, David cares for his mother. She has been ill for months. He tells her about the incident. She smiles faintly, proud of him. "Your father will be proud too," she says softly. David feels a lump in his throat. He thinks about Mr. Lee's job offer. Taking it could change their lives. But he worries about leaving the restaurant staff. They're like a second family to him. His co-workers encourage him to accept. "You deserve more than this job," one says. David nods, but remains hesitant. He doesn't want to chase wealth and lose humility. That night, he prays for guidance. In his heart, he wants balance, dignity, and opportunity. The next morning, Mr. Lee returns to the hotel. He requests David's service again. The manager assigns David without hesitation. Mr. Lee greets David warmly in Mandarin. David replies politely. Mr. Lee asks, "Have you considered my offer?" David takes a deep breath. He says, "Yes, sir, but I need to be sure it aligns with my values." Mr. Lee looks impressed by the honesty. "Good," he says. "I want men who speak truth, not just yes men." David studies him carefully. He senses the billionaire has changed. Mr. Lee continues, "If you accept, I'll ensure your dignity remains intact." David is silent for a moment. Finally, he says, "Then I will accept, on one condition." Mr. Lee leans forward. "What condition?" "That respect is shown to all workers, not just me." Mr. Lee freezes, then slowly nods. "You have my word," he says firmly. They shake hands in Mandarin tradition. Guests clap quietly in the background. David has not only earned respect, he has changed a billionaire's heart. Weeks later, David begins his new role. He becomes a cultural advisor in Mr. Lee's company. His first task is training employees in cross-cultural respect. Staff admire his humility. They are shocked when they learn he was once a waiter. David uses his story as an example. "Dignity has no uniform," he tells them. His words inspire workers across the company. Mr. Lee watches proudly. The billionaire knows he owes his transformation to this man. Meanwhile, the viral video continues to spread. Universities invite David to speak. Students cheer at his message of humility. Journalists write articles about him. Some call him the waiter who taught respect. David always corrects them. "I didn't teach respect. I just reminded people of it." His humility makes the message even more powerful. Back at home, his mother's health improves. She smiles when she hears of his speeches. "You turn pain into purpose," she says. David hugs her tightly. Tears roll down his cheeks. He realizes every sacrifice was worth it. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee continues to change. He donates to schools in poor communities. He funds scholarships for underprivileged students. He sets up programs to teach Chinese to foreigners. "Respect begins with opportunity," he says. People see a new side of him. His reputation improves worldwide. He credits David whenever asked. "A young man taught me humility," he admits. Audiences are stunned by his honesty. The bond between David and Mr. Lee grows strong. They become unlikely friends, one rich, one humble. Months later, they attend a public event together. A reporter asks David, "How did you stay so calm that night?" David replies, "Because dignity is silent power." The crowd applauds. Another reporter asks Mr. Lee, "Why did you change?" Mr. Lee smiles. "Because a man I mocked spoke to me in my own tongue." And his words pierced deeper than any insult. The audience claps louder. The story becomes a modern parable. Schools teach it as a lesson in respect. Business leaders cite it as an example of humility. Workers share it as hope for dignity. Social media continues spreading the clip. People caption it with quotes. "Respect is more valuable than money. Dignity has no uniform. Never underestimate the quiet ones." David remains humble through it all. He continues working hard, never forgetting his roots. His mother watches proudly, knowing her son's legacy is secure. Mr. Lee continues honoring his promise. Workers in his company are treated better than ever before. The culture shifts from arrogance to respect. Investors see not just profits, but people thriving. David's influence is felt across borders. He helps build cultural bridges between nations. He becomes a symbol of dignity and quiet strength. But he never lets fame consume him. At the end of each day, he still pours tea for his mother. He still greets janitors, chefs, and waiters with respect. For he knows where he came from, and he knows true power lies not in wealth, but in the courage to stand with dignity. One evening, David returns to the restaurant where it all began. A new waiter serves him nervously. David smiles warmly and says, "Respect your work. It matters." The waiter nods, encouraged. In that moment, the cycle continues. The story becomes bigger than David himself. Guests whisper, "That's the man from the viral story." David only bows politely and thanks them. For him, it was never about fame. It was always about respect. Years later, the story is still remembered. A young student in China quotes David in her essay. "Respect is more valuable than money," she writes. Her teacher nods proudly. Across the world, the phrase lives on. A phrase born in a restaurant, spoken by a humble waiter. That changed a billionaire. That inspired millions. That reminded humanity of dignity. The story becomes legend. Parents tell it to their children. Professors tell it to their students. Leaders tell it to their followers. And everyone remembers the lesson. Never mock the humble, for they may carry wisdom greater than wealth.